Hey, trying out something a little bit different here today. We're going to be talking about which Rimworld DLC should you get first, and which one should you skip out on. Answer? One of them you should probably skip out on. So, starting off first, we are going to be covering the first released chronologically of the 5 DLC. That's Royalty. Royalty isn't bad. You don't really interact with the mechanics it adds on its own all that much. It adds a few good armor sets and weapons, but that's really about it. Also, not to mention the actual royal mechanic, well, more the honor mechanic, which is the primary way of engaging with this DLC's content in allowing you to climb the royal ladder. You climb up rank after rank after rank, requiring bigger throne rooms and unlocking new psionic powers. Psycasts are pretty fucking sick though, don't get me wrong on that. But overall, Royalty isn't super great, nothing really to write home about. However, it was the first one released, so you kind of have to cut it a little bit of slack, and it is going to be staying in the good tier. Ideology here. Ideology is a game changer. It's honestly kind of crazy how much of a difference adding this DLC makes to a run, because it adds so much depth to not only the role-playing potential of your colony, how overpowered you want to make your colony, and really fleshing out all of the enemy and potential ally factions you have on the map. All of them have different wants, cares, loves, hates. They could even be insanely intense bigots, and you know, more power to them. Ideology adds a whole bunch of new rituals, buildings, and just a whole bunch of shit you can do from a role-playing sense. You could make spacefaring pirate cannibals. You could make cave-dwelling cannibals. You could make stoned cannibals. You could even make cannibals. Or blind people. You know, whichever one you want to see more of. Not like they're going to be seeing much anyway. But Ideology is an absolute game changer, literally and metaphorically. It really bought me into Rimworld, even though it really didn't need to buy me more into Rimworld. Biotech. Biotech is a second must-have DLC. I promise, not all of them are going in here, only these two. Spoiler alert. Biotech adds species, which is something that a lot of modders have tried to mod in, but this is by far the best implementation I've ever seen. This DLC also adds child rearing, which is an absolute game changer, especially if you're trying to get emotionally involved in your colonies at all, because it is an absolute wonder to have a nice little family out on the rim, you know, where they're fighting off bandits, gray bandits, bandits with fur, bandits that could shoot lightning out of their eyes. That one's a little modded though. But Biotech adds the Mechanator, which the Mechanator is its own whole thing that comes alongside a very much needed mechanoid expansion. The mechanoid expansion involves adding the constructoid, the hauler, a bunch of things to do menial labor around your base. Frees up a lot of time from the more lobotomized among us. Let them go craft stone bricks instead. And even if you don't want to craft stone bricks, go have a fucking robot do that too. Who cares? Your colony. Do what you want. Biotech is a wonderful DLC to have. I would say totally worth the money. And honestly, probably I would suggest getting over Ideology. I know, bit of a hot take, but it's really just a runner between those two. Odyssey, the most recent addition, a fairly solid one. Odyssey has a lot of content that you don't really have to interact with if you don't want to, and a lot of the time you won't really interact with it all that much. One of the most important additions in the Odyssey DLC besides the spaceship are the heavy bridges that you can build pretty much everything you could ever fucking want on, including floors, which is a huge quality of life addition. It also adds unique weapons with weapon attachments and modifiers, which are a pretty nice thing when you get a charge rifle that shoots poison poop bullets at your enemies. Really, you know, shakes up the whole combat thing. It also adds the grav ship, which the grav ship is a super cool way of playing Rimworld and completely allows you to do a realistically functional nomad playthrough. Not only can you do a cool nomad playthrough, it's a fucking space nomad playthrough that, with the default scenario that it gives you, allows you to fly through space avoiding robots with an ending that's all about fighting back and kicking those robot asses. It also fleshes out a bunch of landmarks and POIs that can spawn on the map around you. These include, but are not limited to, a few new biomes, which include the grassland, the Mushroom Field, the Volcanic Plains, or mountains, you know, up to you. The Scarlands, which are utterly fucking inhospitable, but, you know, there's a few of us that like to play with 500% difficulty, so, you know, up to you. Pick your poison. It also adds little evil fucking drones, the worst of which being the ones that have that red triangle that you see in all the promotional material for good fucking reason, because they sprint at you and explode. I don't know who thought that was a good idea, but whoever did needs to be executed. Just kidding. It is a great feature, only made great by the fact that you can make them and throw them at your enemy, because if you couldn't do that, oh my god, I would recommend not getting it just for those. Those little shits are annoying. As well as the little bee drones that come up to you and sting you. Odyssey, it focuses a lot on exploration, and that is a desperately missing part of Rimworld. Doing a nomad playthrough really allows you to just see everything that's on display in the map that you don't usually see when you're confined into your tiny little box that is your colony for all of your game. So overall, it's a good addition. Not necessarily game-changing in the way that biotech and ideology are, but definitely worth the money. Now, Anomaly. Anomaly is the red-headed stepchild of these 5 DLC, with its younger brother kicking its ass. However, Anomaly is still really cool. I don't think there are any bad Rimworld DLC, but this one's definitely the worst. Anomaly is an interesting case because it adds a lot of really cool stuff, but I think it kind of steps on its own toes a lot. And when you're doing an Anomaly playthrough, you're doing an Anomaly playthrough. You can't really half engage with any of these mechanics, or else they'll feel not super great, and you won't get any payout of them really. Another small complaint is that the research tree is tiny. There's a lot of really cool stuff that you can contain and research, such as the Nochiosphere, the Shamblers, which are an answer to the ever-present "what if Rimworld was a zombie apocalypse" mod concept, the giant mouth things that I'm forgetting the name of, but they jump up at you and straight up consume your colonist's whole. Another really big addition added by Anomaly is, similar to Royalty, it adds a lot of really cool weapons, such as the Flame AK, the Flame Thrower, and Biomutation Lances that just absolutely mess up one person's day really bad. It also lets you craft a lot of slightly worse versions of endgame treasure items, such as the Psychic Shock Lance, the Psychic Insanity Lance. So overall, lots of fun stuff from Anomaly, but it does kind of take over the whole game, as a lot of the events will also choke out a lot of the base game events, because the majority of the Anomaly events are red, such as Shambler's Approach, such as a lot of stuff. So you end up getting a lot less raids and sieges, and, you know, what's a good colony without a little bit of fighting for it? So overall, Anomaly, last place, definitely still good, but the drawbacks definitely are more than all the other ones. That's it. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.